YouTube, how's it going? The Goat House is back with more NFL offseason coverage, and it's starting to heat up. All the news and rumors regarding trade targets, where they possibly can land, free agents, where they could go, and then, of course, Kyler Murray nonsense. So we'll cover all that. My thoughts, if I'm buying, selling some of these rumors, and my final predictions on each of these guys. We're going to go over 20-plus players here, and I'm going to give my predictions where these guys could go, which teams to look out for all these situations. So a lot to go over here. And don't forget, on our channel already, we have plenty of NFL draft and free agency coverage. We have free agency predictions and more to come for single players. So check those out. And right before we get into it, check out our Twitter and Instagram. Always talking about the draft and the NFL offseason on the Twitter. We have a fan-voted mock draft going on right now. So go and check that out. Give us a follow. Much appreciated. Let's get Kyler Murray out of the way here. This nonsense. I don't really want to talk too much about, the latest news that he didn't interview too well. The meetings didn't go too well. I don't know if it's smoke or not. Could be smoke from some teams. Some teams may not like his attitude. I'm not too worried about it, And the height thing, people are saying, there's a scout saying that it was basically rigged for his height. I don't really care. If he can play, he can play. That's how I view it. But the case for number one overall, that's what I want to talk about. I kind of talked about this in my mock draft too. I'm buying this, that he's going first overall. It's sounding more and more likely. I think that's why it didn't work out. I think the Cardinals may have told him something. They're supposedly shopping Josh Rosen, which we'll talk about him in a second. It's all adding up now. It's all adding up. Kingsbury has one shot. He's got to get his guy here. He's got to get his guy that fits his offense. And he's always been right on the quarterbacks. In college, he has a losing record at Texas Tech but it's because of the defense. Now he's got NFL defense coaches. He's got to get his quarterback. He was always right on, evaluating his quarterback. So this is his guy. That's his offense. And, I'm starting to be a little higher on Murray too. In terms of a draft prospect, because I don't really want to play against him. That's just me. I wouldn't want to game plan against him. I wouldn't want to play against him. Yeah, he could work on some things. I don't think it's going to completely translate to the NFL, but I understand it. So get that out of the way. If you want to hear more on that, go to my latest mock draft, just uploaded yesterday. But moving on to Rosen, that kind of leads us into Rosen. So apparently the trade rumors are true, because they want Murray, and they're trying to trade Rosen. Apparently that's true. Other teams are confirming that the Cardinals are shopping him. And the latest rumor is, I figured they would get a first rounder, maybe more for him, but latest rumor is that it could be a third-round pick. And that's wild to me, because he was just a first-round pick last year. People are looking into too much of what he did in his rookie season. He was thrown into a losing situation, not much talent around him. I can't judge much off that. He's got a high ceiling still. So if it's a third-round pick, if I'm a bunch of teams, I do it. Even if it's a backup for now, I do it. But the teams that I would look out for Josh Rosen, I think he goes for more than a third. I don't know. I'm buying that they could be shopping him, because obviously I'm buying that Kyler Murray could be the first pick. I'm not saying 100% guaranteed. But the teams I would look out for Josh Rosen, we'll start with the wild card teams. A big-time wild card team could be the Detroit Lions. There was rumors they can move on from Stafford. I don't think they move on from him yet, but they could be getting ready for that in the future. They just got their new coach, who they like, Matt Patricia. I like him a lot. They just got him last year, so they could be looking to build this thing up. They look like they build the defense up in no time. Defense was never on the weaker side, but it looked like it got real good at the end of the year with some of their draft picks. So the Lions could make sense. They would be a wild card player in this if it is, a third-round pick, if that's the actual value. So we'll see. Another wild card could be the Patriots. Some people are talking about the Patriots too. They need to be looking for the quarterback of the future. There's a couple guys I like for them in the draft. Maybe Ryan Finley, maybe Jarrett Stidham. But Josh Rosen, better prospect than them. And I think they would have to use a second-round pick possibly on Jarrett Stidham. So you trade a third, and even if it's a third and a fifth or something like that, I think they go get Rosen. If that's the actual asking price, I think the Patriots can go do it. But those are my two wild cards. There's a million wild cards, teams that need quarterbacks in the future. But I got two wild cards right there. A step up, teams a little more likely, the next tier of teams. I'm looking at the Bengals. They just got their new coach in there. They want to run the new offense. Andy Dalton, is he part of the future? He can be, but they can bring Rosen in there. I don't know if I throw this guy back on the bench, so that's the thing. But if Dalton's still there, you would have to. So we'll see if that's the case. I would look out for the Bengals possibly being a player in this for the right draft pick, the right trade piece, I should say. Another team is the Giants. The Giants were rumored to be somewhat high on Rosen in the draft process last year. Not high enough to take him where they took Barkley, but they maybe they try to trade back in for Rosen. Not things we know for sure, but they could be a player in this for sure if it's. I think the Giants would be even willing to trade their second-round pick. I really think so. But maybe it comes down to their evaluation on Haskins, because Haskins is kind of the guy right now for the Giants. Haskins versus Rosen. And there's some that believe for them to actually get Haskins to play it safe, they would have to trade up a little bit. I don't know if they need to do that, but some team, random. It could be a random team. It could be a team that are picking in a spot that can't get a top-tier quarterback like the Dolphins, like the Redskins. They may trade ahead of them, so the Giants may have to play it safe. So do you want to trade up to get Haskins, or would you trade for Rosen? That's the question you need to ask yourself. So I'd keep an eye on the Giants. And another team I'd definitely for sure keep an eye on is the Dolphins. Dolphins need a quarterback. They're trying to shop Tannehill, which we'll go over that a little later in this video. But there's a number of guys that could be linked. Free agents, guys like this, they could draft a guy. Maybe a guy like Drew Lock falls to him, but you never know. Do you really want to trade up for a quarterback that you're not sure about? Rosen still, I guess you're unsure about. But the Dolphins, definitely a team I'd keep an eye on. But the team I keep coming back to, the team that, we made a trade scenario video a couple weeks ago. And this is even before the Rosen trade rumors are out. This is the kind of team I linked him to, is the Washington Redskins. So this is the number one team I'm looking at right now. But it wouldn't surprise me if one of these other teams on the board tried to get him. But the Redskins could do it here. The third rounder's an asking price. You go do it. The Redskins not only need their quarterback right now, they need one of the future too. And picking at 15, it's not looking good. It's expected to be Murray, Haskins, Locke, all gone. I'm not a believer in Daniel Jones. Maybe they are. Or do you wait to the second round and get a guy? I think it makes more sense to go get a guy like Rosen. It depends on the asking price. But the Redskins are a team that makes sense. The tricky thing is, I think the Redskins make sense for a couple other quarterbacks that are available, actually. So we'll talk about those guys in a little bit, too. So it's hard to identify which of these quarterbacks going to the Redskins, but just to me, I got a good feeling about Rosen and the Redskins. I got a good feeling about the fit, I should say. So we'll see. Those are some teams to keep an eye on. We're going to move on now. Next player. Antonio Brown, the top trade target of the offseason, and he's supposed to get traded by Friday. Even the Steelers are saying they're going to trade him by Friday. I'm buying that. I think they do trade him. Identifying the team, some people think it's easy right now who the team is. A wild card team that I would not rule out. I'm not picking them, but I still would not rule them out. Is the Tennessee Titans. I think they potentially could do this. They're not afraid to trade some picks to go get players, especially like Antonio Brown. They've been lacking this type of receiver for so long, and you get somebody that for sure what's going to give you here. So the Titans could do it. The only downside is, it sounds like, they were rumored to be heavily involved in this. It's kind of died down, and the reason for that is they did trade a lot of draft picks last year, and they gave themselves a 4-player class, and they need to, keep that bigger this year. They need a haul of guys. You usually want a haul of guys. They got some good players in the draft. So I don't know if they really want to trade draft picks. It's hard to tell with the asking price, Brown, but I would not rule the Titans out. There's some teams that are being ruled out. Jets, Broncos. I'm agreeing with that. The Niners, I'm kind of borderline on, but I don't think they're going to do it. But the team that's the obvious one is the Raiders. The Raiders are the obvious one of the team linked to them the most. Still in advanced talks, and the Steelers are coming out saying, teams, we're trying to trade them by Friday. Give us an offer. ASAP. They actually said that. So that's saying they're kind of desperate to hear from more teams. It sounds like the Raiders are really the only team at this point. So, it sounds like it's the landing spot. The most likely landing spot is the Raiders. But a team I just do not want to give up on for this was my original pick is the Green Bay Packers. It makes so much sense. They have a lot of draft picks. The only thing that really kind of makes sense for them not to do this is they've been drafting pretty well, starting last year really. They've been drafting well on the defensive side. And with all those picks, they can finish building up that defense, because they do still need a lot. They covered corner last year. They still need a lot. Could use some pieces on offense. So maybe they want to keep all those picks, but they have the most picks in the draft. Antonio Brown, Aaron Rodgers makes so much sense. They're in win now mode. It's because they have Aaron Rodgers, and that window's starting to close a little bit. The defense, they're better off going for the draft. You see these defensive players in the draft every year. They're instant impact guys, so it makes sense to keep getting those defensive guys in the draft. You don't really need to get too much offense in the draft. You have a lot of picks. Even if you trade some and get Antonio Brown, you still can get a couple offense if you need to. An offensive lineman, possibly a tight end of the future. Other than that, build defense. You don't need corners. Your D-line looks okay. It makes so much sense to me. It just makes so much sense. Antonio Brown, Devontae Adams, it makes so much sense. I keep saying it, but it does. But it sounds right now that the Raiders, I'd be a fool not to pick the Raiders as my overall pick, but my gut from weeks ago is the Packers. So, I'd keep an eye out for it. Again, the Titans are my wild card, but I'm really thinking Raiders or Packers. We'll see what happens. It's going to be very interesting. Can't wait for Friday. Hopefully it actually gets done. We'll see. Moving on. Le'Veon Bell, where will he go? I have a top 7. Top 7 landing spots. Start from 7, go to 1 here. And a reminder for Antonio Brown and Le'Veon Bell, we have free agency prediction videos on them already with a couple other Goat House members, so you can catch their predictions on there. But number 7, and just missing the cut, is the Colts and the Texans because they have the cap space. I just don't think they do that. But number 7 would be the Ravens to me. They could definitely use a running back like Le'Veon Bell. And they have cap space, but I think their focus is on getting some of their guys back. We saw some of those are free agents and just other positions. They got to make sure that defense is back to elite again, but it's definitely possible. That's why they're number 7 on my list. Number 6 is the Eagles. They've shown strong interest. My problem is, where's this cap space coming from? There's rumors that they could trade or cut Michael Bennett. I don't think they just cut him, but they could. And then Nelson Agholor, they could trade him. So maybe that space becomes available and they get Le'Veon Bell. So it's a possibility as we sit. Compare the rest of the teams here. Maybe a little unlikely. Number 5 is the Jets. Yeah, the Jets have the cap space. They may throw out the biggest offer, honestly. I feel like Le'Veon Bell doesn't want to play for him. He's kind of said that in the past. I don't know. I'm just still not really feeling it, but they're number 5 on my list, so it's definitely possible. Number 4, team not talked about enough here. I still think it's very possible. The San Francisco 49ers. They have the cap space. Bell would fit Shanahan's offense perfectly. Yeah, you got some solid running backs in McKinnon and Breida. I like both of them. They're definitely worthy of starting running backs, but they both got hurt last year. And then Le'Veon Bell, you can't be afraid to get better at the same time. So, can't rule out the Niners. Number 3 is going to be my original pick, which was the Buccaneers. I was really feeling the Buccaneers, connection with Bruce Arians there too. Problem with the Buccaneers is they don't have a lot of cap space, and I thought they were going to have a lot of cap space because I thought they were going to cut Joe McCoy, cut Deshaun Jackson. None of that's happened yet. They might still cut Deshaun Jackson, but still not a lot of space to work with here. Still very possible. That was my original pick, my original gut feeling. Usually my original feeling is the right one, but I'm going away for it for now, but they're number 3. Number 2 is the Raiders, just like the Jets. They're going to make a huge offer, maybe too good to pass up. I think for some reason, he'd rather play for the Raiders than the Jets, but pretty close there. Not saying the Raiders are better, but that's just how I feel. And number 1 is just a recent feeling I'm getting here is the Chiefs. The Chiefs would be so dominant with him, and you could say, well, the problem is the cap space. That's true. They're similar situation to the Bucs right now with the cap space. But if it's true, they do officially cut Justin Houston. That frees up a lot. If they trade D Ford, frees up a lot. There's a couple other moves they can make too. Eric Berry, a couple other guys that will free up just a little bit at a time, but it really adds up. So they can be, after a few moves, they can have from that 30 to 40 range in cap space for just this year alone, which is ridiculous. So, and I know they have Damian Williams, but that'll be a good duo. And you can't be afraid to get better. Their defense is changing. It's almost like it's on a rebuild. So you got to make sure that offense is beyond elite, really. And Le'Veon Bell could be that. So that's kind of what I'm feeling recently. If he's going for the money, it's going to be the Raiders or the Jets, unless the Texans and Colts make an offer. Raiders, Jets, Niners. That's for the money. If he's going for other reasons, the Buccaneers has got Bruce Arians there, or if he's going for the Super Bowl, Chiefs, big time pay cut for the Eagles if he's going for the Super Bowl. So that's my thoughts on Le'Veon Bell. Again, check out the other video. You can get more perspectives on things. But moving on to the next guy here. Tashaun Gipson, safety from the Jags, being rumored to be on the trading block. Or teams are maybe coming to them and asking what the price would be. And I'm buying that because People are, raving about the safety market. I think it's a little bit overrated. There's quite a few names, but, some guys that don't play a true safety, some guys that are going to ask too much money. They can play, but too much money. Gipson's owed just under $9 million, and some of what these safeties are asking for is around, 10, 11, 12 million per year. So, and I think Gipson might be better than a lot of them. So it makes sense to me. Those teams that don't want to go and spend that extra few million, but they're willing to give up a draft pick, it makes sense to me. There's a long list of teams I would consider, but I grabbed 4 here. And number 4 to trade for Gipson would be the Redskins. The Redskins could definitely use him. It would be a darn good fit. But they just traded a draft pick for Clinton Dix, so that's why they would be at the 4 spot. They would probably be at the 1 spot, honestly, otherwise. The number 3 spot would be the LA Rams. They definitely could use him. Joyner might be on the way out, but they also can bring Joyner back. He knows the defense. Gibson's definitely a little better, in my opinion, and it's a little cheaper option than going and get the top guys. And then that way you can try to bring back Sue. You can try to bring back Fowler. So that makes sense to me. I think they'll be willing to give up a draft pick. And the next 2 are pretty even. I think it's hard to split them up here. And I like the Cowboys because they're rumored to not be in on Earl Thomas or Landon Collins anymore because they're just a little bit too steep. But they do want a safety. So this makes sense. Couple million less to get potentially a better safety. Not better than Earl Thomas, but he's a little better safety than a lot of these guys. And it's going to be cheaper too. And then one that makes sense to me is the Panthers. Not a ton of cap space either. So they can't go out and they can't pay Earl Thomas, Landon Collins, guys like that. But they could trade for a guy like Tashaun Gipson. So a lot of these teams are pretty even. I'm not making my clear-cut pick here, but I guess the first one that popped my mind was the Panthers. But it does make sense for the Cowboys now that they put it out there that they may not be going for Earl Thomas or Landon Collins because they're too expensive. So those 2 teams on the right make more sense. The Redskins, it's a great fit, but I don't know if they want to trade again for a safety. And the Rams, it makes sense, but first we kind of got to know if they want Joyner back or not. So, or they can go big with Earl Thomas. That's definitely possible. I don't think a team like the Panthers or Cowboys are going to end up going big because it's too much money for Earl Thomas. So that's my thoughts on Gipson. Moving on, though. Next guy up. Another safety that's definitely going to be available in free agency here is Adrian Amos. And I kind of like going after Amos for a couple million less than some of these other guys. So Amos could end up being one of the top safety targets, and a couple teams the teams we just talked about that could be in the market for a safety. But there's 3 teams that come in mind when talking about Adrian Amos. I like the Texans for him. I think the Texans make a lot of sense. They have a lot of cap space, so they definitely could be in on Adrian Amos. And then the Broncos. You can't, not just because Vic Fangio's there, but the safety, they have a safety position open now. They released Darian Stewart. They could use a guy like this anyways. So Broncos are a team that would definitely keep a close eye on, connection with Vic Fangio, and they could use him. They definitely can use him. And to me, the Broncos don't have a bunch of holes. They're a pretty solid team, and they can spend their cap this way. But I just have a feeling he just ends up back with Chicago. They ended up clearing a little cap space by cutting people, and I think it's because they want to keep this defense together, as best they can here. I think they want to try to do that. So I know they got a new defense coordinator, but I think he ends up back in Chicago. So that's my prediction. But I keep a close eye. There's more teams than this too. The teams that need safeties, but the teams that just pop in my head right away when I'm thinking Adrian Amos right here. Keep a close eye on the Denver Broncos. Makes a lot of sense there. Another Bears defensive back, Bryce Callahan, their nickel corner. Again, I think the Bears want to bring back a lot of their guys. They want to keep that number 1 defense together. So the top landing spot would be Chicago, but they are a little tight in the cap, even though they cleared some space. So maybe they have to choose between Amos and Callahan. And it sounds like some Bears fans would actually rather have Callahan, and that could be the Bears thinking as well. But a team like the Jets, who are rumored to be very high on Callahan, which I'm buying into, they can offer a lot of money here, where the Bears may not be able to pretty much match it. So the Bears may be able to give Amos that money, but not be able to get Callahan that money. The Jets, I think, could actually overpay for a guy like this. Callahan's been solid, solid nickel corner, had a very good year last year, but still to me he's not 100% proven. So I think he could be a little bit overpaid here, and it could be the point where the Bears just can't match. They want to, but can't. And the Jets, why do I think they may overpay for something like this? Well, if they're high on it, it can happen, and because they have so much cap space where but I think they'll miss on some of the top guys. The top tier guys are going to make up a lot of that cap space. I think those guys will take a little less, most likely, to go to a more of a contending team. The Jets are still in that rebuild mode, even though the defense could be pretty solid. That's why I think they may overpay for some of these guys, the next tier of guys they want. Not quite the number one tier of guys, but that could happen. It could put the Bears in an interesting situation here, so we will see. Moving on to the next player. Dante Fowler Jr., the Rams pass rusher. I got 3 teams that will be making the strongest push for him. And those 3 teams are the San Francisco 49ers. They have cap space. He fits more of a 3-4. The Niners kind of got a bunch of those guys that can kind of fit both. So they definitely can make him work in their defense. And the Rams, he definitely can return to the Rams. They just traded for him. They have some cap space. They would like to re-sign him. But the Jets are just, we're bringing back up the Jets. It's that team. They're going to miss on the tier 1 guys, most likely. It's kind of what I'm predicting. They're going to get some of the guys pretty close to the top tier of the free agency guys. But they're going to miss on some of those guys. They're going to have to use their cap space. Well, they don't have to, but they're going to use it, and they may overpay a little bit for guys like this and make it a tough situation for the Rams. So I think unlikely for the Niners, but they are the third most likely, I guess. So I think the Rams would really like him back, but I think the Jets are a team that can make it real tough for them. So it's definitely a couple teams to keep an eye on for Dante Fowler Jr. Trey Flowers, the Patriots pass rusher, had a dominant year, and I have 4 teams that could be in play for Trey Flowers, who could get quite the payday. The wild card team, we already used them as a wild card team. We're using them again. It's Tennessee Titans. They definitely are looking for pass rushers. They got the Patriots connection there with Vrabel. Already brought some guys in. Problem with the Titans is, even though they could still be interested, I don't know if they should be, because I think he fits more of a 4-3. The Titans run a 3-4, and there's really a clear-cut top 3 teams that I think are going to be battling over him. One team is the Detroit Lions. He's got the connection too with Matt Patricia over there. He's coming from the Patriots. He fits their defense. He can play opposite of Okwara if they lose Ziggy Ansah. So that makes a lot of sense. They could be going out there to try to pay a lot here for Trey Flowers. Obviously, he can return to the Patriots. The Patriots got to want him back. Patriots do some surprising things sometimes. Maybe they'll let him walk. That would be a Patriots move, but I don't think so. He's really developed nicely under them. Just got a lot better this year. And they don't have the most cap. They create a little more cap with cutting Dwayne Allen there. So they may be able to do it, may be able to bring him back, and I'm sure he loves winning. But another connection to the Patriots, another team that I'm starting to feel a little better about is the Dolphins. They got Brian Flores there, just came from the Patriots. So all these teams have Patriots connections in some way. So these teams make the most sense. And they all have the need. Again, don't know if he 100% fits the Titans. That's just my opinion. The Dolphins also creating some space. They're going to cut Robert Quinn, Andre Branch. That clears up some good space. So the Dolphins could pay good money here to get Trey Flowers. And it's really a toss-up because I like the Lions too. But gut feeling, I think he's got to be back with the Patriots. They could surprise us and not try to get him back if it's a certain amount of money. But he's got to be back. But I really think the Dolphins Lions, there's going to be a battle going on for this guy. So it should be a fun free agency for him. Another pass rusher with maybe some of those connections there coming from the Lions, and the rumor is he will not be going back to the Lions, and I agree with that. Don't think they want him back. I think they get a guy that fits the defense a little more, and a guy that's a little healthier. But because of that, he may get a 1-year deal. I'm buying into that. That 1-year deal makes a lot of sense, unless some team is very confident about him. I think, if the Patriots, going back to Trey Flowers, I think if they miss on Trey Flowers, I think they go for a guy like Ziggy Ansah. I really do. It makes a lot of sense. It's a 1-year proved deal in that situation, and that makes a lot of sense. But that's if they miss on Trey Flowers. But who knows? Maybe you got to see which one comes first. Maybe Ziggy gets signed first. So that'd be very interesting. And then it brings up the Dolphins again. I think whatever one misses on Trey Flowers will be in on Ziggy Ansah. So that's why I expect Trey Flowers to come first. He's a better player at the moment. Ziggy Ansah, if healthy, could be pretty darn good. These 2 teams keep an eye on which one misses on Trey Flowers. And then 2 other teams that make a lot of sense. The Panthers make sense. They don't have a ton of cap, but they can do a 1-year prove it here with Ziggy Ansah. I think he can fit their defense, whatever they're trying to do, honestly. They could switch to a 3-4. Heard those rumors. I think Ansah can fit in there. If it's a 1-year deal, let's give it a try. It makes a lot of sense. And the Raiders are a team that I think, and they're covering the Panthers logo because I'm going to pick the Raiders. And, I think that's the same situation we've been talking about with the Jets. They could overspend a little bit for a guy like this and maybe give him a couple years, which could be more appealing to him than the 1 year prove it. So the Raiders, I think, have the best opportunity here. But Dolphins and Patriots could be appealing to him. It depends on Trey Flowers. It kind of goes into that a lot. So that's my thoughts on Ziggy Ansah. Let's move on to a couple more guys here. Anthony Barr, the Vikings free agent linebacker. He didn't receive the franchise tag. Vikings don't have a lot of cap space, and they didn't make any big cuts yet. So doesn't look like Barr's going to be back. And he's also rumored to wanting to play in California. He's from the area. He played at UCLA. So let's put the Cali teams up on the board. You got the Niners, the Rams, the Chargers, and the Raiders. Which one of these teams is he going to go to? And I actually have a wild card here. My wild card team, nowhere near California, but the Browns. I do like the Browns for him. Instant start right there. He can take Jamie Collins' position, so makes a lot of sense there, and they have the cap space. But if he does want to play in Cali, we recently went over this free agent video with the other guys, so we all had different predictions. But the Rams makes a lot of sense, but they may try to get their own guys first, and they may be too late to Anthony Barr. But, they have to have a good strategy. I was kind of leaning towards the Chargers and the Raiders, the two teams I'd keep an eye on. Niners, possible. I think the other teams are more likely. The Raiders and the Chargers are the two teams I'm really keeping a close eye on. I'm starting to lean towards the Raiders, honestly. Because they have the cap space. They need him big time, and he can do multiple things for them. I do think it's appealing to him if he's a pass rusher somewhere. So somewhere that would be a 3-4 defense. So it'd be more like the Rams. So it's kind of what he wants here. Is he going to go for the money? A lot of questions here, but most likely I'd say he play in California. He's going to go play in California, but I'm looking at the Raiders at this point. That's my pick for now. The two Ravens linebackers, C.J. Mosley and Darryl Suggs, both free agents at the same time. Pretty crazy. And they're actually both linked at the moment to the Arizona Cardinals, which is pretty wild. There's rumors that they both can go together to Arizona, Darryl Suggs being from there. Very interesting. Suggs getting up there in age. The Ravens actually could be more focused on getting some of their own guys back. Maybe similar position, same position as Zadarius Smith, who played opposite of him. So I think it's very realistic that the Cardinals could land Suggs, opposite of Chandler Jones, and they don't have to worry about taking Bosa or whoever with the first overall pick. They take Kyler Murray, if that's true. And then if C.J. Mosley, right now I'm kind of leaning that he can go back to the Ravens. I think they'll do whatever they can to get him back. There's going to be a lot of teams interested. We already know the Cardinals. I think the Steelers, their own division rival there, could be very interested in C.J. Mosley. So the Ravens got to do everything to get him back. We're going to do a free agent video on C.J. Mosley tonight with the other Goat House guys. So we're going to see everyone's picks, all the different landing spots on there. So please check that out later tonight. Can't wait for that. But moving on. Tyrann Mathieu, the Texans safety, has 3 teams heavily linked to him right now at the moment. And I believe he'll go to one of these teams. And the first one's the Texans, the current team, his team from this year. They're going to make a push to bring him back, see what his worth is here. There's a lot of free agents in this market. Some are asking for a lot. What's Tyrann Mathieu asking for? We really don't know at this moment. But the Texans will try to bring him back, try to keep most of that team together that got him to the playoffs. Another team is the Buccaneers, and that was my original pick in the Tyrann Mathieu video that we did a couple weeks ago. That was my original pick. He's got connections there, and they definitely could use him. That makes sense. But a little tight in the cap, a little tighter than we thought they would be, but do they make their move this move here? And now he's linked to a team we were just talking about a little bit ago here, and that's the Ravens. They cut Eric Weddle, and they apparently want Tyrann Mathieu to replace Eric Weddle, and they have the cap space. They can make the moves here. So very interesting. I don't know if he's kind of made it seem like he doesn't know if he wants to go back to the Texans, but I kind of took it as he thought they weren't going to offer him, but now it's coming out that he's going to get offered by them. So maybe he does want to go back. But I would say the Texans are third place in the running here, in my opinion. And it's tough between the Bucs and the Ravens because the Ravens really want him and that great defense. They could pay him. Very, very appealing. But I almost got the feeling that even back when we made the video that he kind of almost made up his mind. It felt like he was already a Buccaneer the way he was talking. So I'm going to stick with my gut on this one, even though the Ravens, even the Texans are starting to make a strong push apparently. But the Ravens, would be a very appealing spot. So it's tough. But I'm going to stick with my gut with the Buccaneers on this pick, but very interesting. Definitely going to be a fun free agency with all these guys. Last year was easier. Last year, pretty much knew where all these guys were going, I thought. But this year's tough. A lot of guys that are, deciding between multiple teams already, and we didn't even get started yet. It's going to be an interesting free agency. But we got a few more to go through here. Darryl Williams, the right tackle from the Carolina Panthers. Few teams I keep an eye on here. I wouldn't rule out, 2 wild cards, I guess. But I wouldn't rule out the Minnesota Vikings, and I wouldn't rule out the Houston Texans. Both teams with a giant need for an offensive lineman like Darryl Williams. He could play at a high level, but recently injured last year, so that's the tough part. How much money do you give a guy like that? But the 2 teams, the news came out today. It's kind of everyone knows it, that the Giants and the Bills are the teams that are going to make a strong push for him, and he has a connection with both GMs, so it makes a lot of sense. Both teams have a very solid left side of the line, and he fits the right tackle spot, which both teams could definitely use a right tackle right now. It's tough. Maybe I was leaning a little more towards the Giants, honestly, but I think if it ends up being a bidding war, I think the Bills have a little better chance. The Giants are going to open up some space by cutting Olivier Vernon if that happens. We got to see if that happens first. So I was thinking the Giants made a little more sense, but the Bills do have a little more cap, so they may win. If there is a bidding war, they may win that. Ryan Tannehill is an interesting one because the Dolphins are now trying to trade him, and the only team linked with those trade rumors is the Washington Redskins. We talked about them possibly being in on the Josh Rosen trade. They could draft one. I can actually, they're rumored to wanting to stick with Colt McCoy. I can actually see them going with maybe a Tannehill and drafting one. Can I see them going Rosen and drafting one? No, I don't. So it is tough because which one do you think the Redskins are going to go for, Rosen or Tannehill? I think they look to see if Rosen can become available first and they can have him. If not, they could go with Tannehill, but they have been linked to possibly trading for Tannehill. It makes sense. He's a fit. We did a prediction video on him a couple weeks ago. My pick was the Redskins. I thought it made sense. I thought it was a fit, but I think they would rather have Rosen. So I think really Tannehill's only option to start could be the Redskins. They're picking in that spot with the 15th pick. Where they can't really get a day one starting quarterback there, so they may have to go out and get one of these guys. So it's very interesting, very interesting. Maybe the Bengals would be the wild card, but the Redskins are the only team that I think would trade for him and the only team he would start on next year. We'll see though, so he can be in trouble if he's looking for a starting job. Let's go to some rapid fire predictions. Go. Former Falcons running back Tevin Coleman, I got going to the New York Jets. Earl Thomas going to the San Francisco 49ers. Nick Foles, as expected, going to Jacksonville, playing for the Jags. I got Clinton Dix going to the Oakland Raiders. Jamie Collins, just released by the Browns. I think he fits perfectly with the Minnesota Vikings. Golden Tate to New England. Teddy Bridgewater to Miami. Kenny Vaccaro re-signs with the Tennessee Titans. And Landon Collins goes to the Colts, and so does Darryl Williams. But that's going to do it for this one, everyone. Subscriber goal is at 20K. If you don't subscribe to this channel, we got plenty of NFL content, NFL draft, NFL free agency, more of that to come as well during the season. We got plenty of content, predictions, power rankings. So we much appreciate it if you subscribe. Much appreciate it. Click that notification bell and that like button. But that's going to do it for this one. Thanks, everyone, for watching. Stay tuned for more. Goodbye.